Okay, welcome everybody. This is episode 1 of our Geometry Dash inspired 2D video game using our own pixel art that we've already created. I'm going to show you how to set up the project in this video, try to keep it short and sweet, and give you a little bit of a beginner basic tutorial of how to navigate Unity. So this is Unity Hub. This is where we will see all of our projects. It has all of our different installs because Unity has many different versions of the engine. So we're going to go to the projects tab here, make sure you're logged in, your initials should be up there, and we're going to click on new project. When we click new project, ensure that we're going to be, for this one, we could use the 6. This is an older version, needs to be updated, so we're going to be using the 2022, or if you have the 2021 LTS, those will work great. Be sure you're on the All tab here, and you're going to select the 2D built-in render pipeline. Over here, put a name on your project. Don't let it default to my project. You could say my first game, or my name, Tyler's Dash game, whatever you want to call it, it's up to you. And ensure you're putting it in your D drive. I don't have a D drive on this PC, but for you, you're going to want to make sure it's on a local D drive. Usually that's where it's the best spot for storing everything. Don't turn on Unity Cloud, but once you have a name here, you're going to click Create Project. Now, it'll take a few minutes to open up our template, but I've already done so to speed this up. So here it is here. When you get open, it's going to be a little bit overwhelming. So let me walk you through all these different windows and what they do and what's going on. So first, probably the most important is the scene view. This is, think of yourself as the director. We're in 2 dimensions right now because that was the default. It's technically, if I click this button, it turns it into a 3D world. We are not working in 3 dimensions, only 2 dimensions. So we're going to keep that clicked on for sure. I can right click to pan around and see what's going on, but this is super boring. All I have is a camera right now. So this is my first game object and my default game object. These are found in the hierarchy windows. So this hierarchy here is an organization of all my game objects, and that's what makes up a video game. It can be your player, enemies, atmosphere, obstacles, any type of the world, your artwork, you name it, it would be going in here. Now, we only have one, so let's click on the main camera. And over here, we're going to talk about this window next, the inspector. So the inspector here for our main camera, all game objects have a transform by default, which has a position in our world, which we have X, Y, and it is on the negative on the Z. Technically, this camera is not on the plane. It's further back. So it can look at our world for us. Also, we want to make sure the rotation is set to 0, scale is all set to 1. Down here, if you don't like, well, let's talk about that right now. So the camera is showing what the player will actually see, which again is just this blank blue screen here. So this window is our game view, and usually it's nice to have it over here. This window, you can attach it down below if you prefer for your workflow. I do like it on the side for this kind of game, and you can always, if you want to see a bigger view, just double click it and you can get it enlarged. So double click that to bring it back down, and make sure it is on the pixel game setting, which is a resolution of 640 by 360. This is really standard, especially for the type of game we're making. But you can see there are plenty more. We could go all the way up to full or 4K if we really wanted to. But for this, we are rendering at a very simple resolution. So 640 by 360 is what we want. And if you don't like that color, change it. So over here on our camera settings, this is our first, we're going to edit this component of the camera. It's kind of redundant, but the main camera has a camera component, and we're going to select this, and you can pick anything you want. So for me, I'm maybe just go with this. I don't know if I like that. Let's go with a bit of a, I don't know, I can't make a choice on the color right now. Let's kind of do this like sky color. Okay, so that's what I'm going to do. Feel free to change your color however you want. But yeah, so that's our inspector. So these are all the components of each game object. We're going to be modifying code here and colliders and rigid bodies and all kinds of stuff. Your artwork and how things look and feel. So the inspector is where we control each of those game objects and make modifications. And there's tons of components we can add. These are just a few different samples, but here are so many different types of components. There's literally thousands. Okay. Down here in this window, we got the project window. This is basically a file folder of all of our stuff that we're using to be as we see fit to be putting into our game objects and our components. So this will be an organized file folder as we go. And this last one we'll talk more about later, but for coding, the console is really important. The console is going to talk to us on how our code is running. If there's any problems, any errors or warnings, your console is going to tell you what's going on, and we're going to learn how to work with that. And hopefully it'll be our best friend and not our worst enemy. Okay, let's actually create something in this scene, because right now there's nothing. So over here in the hierarchy, you can right click to create something new, or this plus symbol. Always got multiple ways to do the same thing. We're going to go down and create our first 2D object. We're going to go over to sprites, and we're going to select the square. And this square is defaults right there in this part of our scene. Now, when we create a new game object, it wants us to name it. I always recommend naming as you create game objects. Don't just let it default to the square name. And then next over here on the transform, we're going to right click and reset it. What that's going to do is it's going to zero our position. It's centering us because remember, this is an x-axis across. We have a y-axis up and down. And so now we're perfectly centered in our scene and with our camera. Okay, what should we do next? Well, this square needs some components because right now it just has a location and it has art. It can't collide with anything. This is just a sprite render I can turn on and off. We're going to add our first component, and it's going to be a collider. Now, colliders come in a lot of different shapes. You can see here, box, capsule, circle. We can make custom colliders, polygon, mesh colliders, edge colliders, all kinds of stuff. You would think if I did a box collider, it would work perfect. It would go around my box nicely. But we're actually going to be using a capsule collider. This is really helpful because it's got rounded edges, which is going to make movement a lot easier. So we're going to add that, and we're going to zoom in. I'm using my roller wheel here, and we see this little green box. If I turn off my sprite render, we can see it now. And for now, we're just going to leave this. Once we bring in our artwork, we're going to edit this. But right now, I'm really happy with how it's defaulted here. You might be thinking, well, it's a circle on a square. Why wouldn't we put a square box collider? Absolutely, that would make sense if this wasn't our player. If it was part of our world, yes, we would, which we will do shortly. So here's our collider here. We're not going to change any settings on it. I do want to just show a few different things before I add anything else, and it's these buttons over here on the left. So we have a pan button to move around. We have a movement button, so I can move my object left, right, or in both directions if I grab the box. Again, over here, I can go and right click and reset the transform. I can also move it here by just clicking and dragging on the X, or I could type in a value and move it that way. So I'm going to set that back to 0. Similar with the rotation button here, I can select this and I can rotate. The most common rotation we would use if we were going to do rotations is on the Z. And this is going to spin because the Z is going kind of forward and back, like it's going through our screen. We're not going to rotate it on the X or the Y. So I'm just going to set that back. We're going to put that back to 0. Another one we're going to use quite a bit is scale. So now I can scale this box in my X, and I can scale this. Okay, and you can notice that it is scaling my my capsule collider. And again, I can do that over here. I can do it with the box, but my best friend is undo. Control Z, 1, 2, 3. Control Y, one too many. Control Y is your redo. And those have hotkeys. So if you're going to notice here, if I press Q, it highlights the hand. W, E, R, there's some great hotkeys for the most common ones. We're not going to be using the rectangle tool, the transform, or the collider directly. We'll often, but this button is helpful. We're going to be using this button here to edit our colliders later. Okay. What else can we add to this? Well, right now, let's go down and let's add a component, and let's add a rigid body. Because right now, with the collider, it can hit stuff, but it's not going to go anywhere unless we allow gravity to act on it. So I'm going to start typing, and again, we're going to pick the 2D version. We're going to add a rigid body 2D here. We're not going to mess around with anything. Okay, we're just going to leave that be. Again, I can minimize these if I want to make things a little bit quicker and easier to find stuff. But this rigid body now, we can do our first game test. So here's our play button. We can game test and see what's going to happen now that I have a collider and a rigid body. What's going to happen to this box? So let's press play and see what happens. But a rigid body basically adds mass. It has 1 kilogram of mass now, and sometimes it takes a little bit on our first game test. Hopefully this loads shortly, and we'll see what happens. And if it doesn't, if it captures the frame, we should see some action any second now. And it falls into oblivion, and I could zoom out and pan down, and I don't know, yeah, I can kind of catch up to it, but yeah, we're gonna get out of there. Okay, look, here's a great thing. I'm like, oh geez, I'm way off. Where's my scene? I can always click on any of my game objects, hover my mouse in the scene, and press F to zoom in back on that object. Now that's a bit far. I want to go back. This white box shows my camera rectangle view, so it's helpful to see what's going on there. Let's create some ground, and we're going to conclude the video there. So we're going to right click, and we're going to add another 2D object, and this time I'm still going to add the square. Okay, and this time I'm going to take my square, and let's just kind of move it down here somewhere. I'm going to set, I really like to set these at exact values. So I'm going to set the X at 0, so that's centered left and right. And I'm going to set the lower boundary at, let's go -4. Okay, so now that's dead center, -4. And now I'm going to scale that up. I'm going to choose my scale tool, and I'm going to move it all the way across. Now I can just click and drag this, or over here, let's just move this all the way up to 20. And now you can see we have a nice big platform. But if I press play, hopefully this loads a lot faster this time, it's going to fall right through, and that's because no collider. There is no collider on the ground. So I should have named this. Let's double click this. There we go. We're going to call this ground. And on our ground, we're going to go over to add component, and we're going to add a collider. And this time we will use the box collider 2D. It's going to wrap around nicely. And now if I press play, our box will fall nice and easily onto our ground. Great. Not a very fun game yet, but we're set up and we got something to work with. In the next video, we're going to make the box move and do a few more things to get a sense of what we're actually, how we're going to control our movement mechanics in this game. Okay, so that's all for our episode 1. We'll see you in episode 2.